I'm joined now by the former advisor to President Reagan, indeed the arms negotiator during the Reagan administration, who is the author of the new book, Reagan at Reykjavik, Ken Adelman. Ken, we are so honored to have you here on America's Forum today.
Thank you, JD. Your summary of the book is very good. And the only thing you left out, which was a wonderful summary, was that it's just a great story, that it has all kinds of twists and turns, it has all kinds of ups and downs and emotional, and it's full of surprises. It's like an Agatha Christie mystery where over a stormy weekend in October in a creaky old house thought to be haunted, two exceptional individuals meet and they experience the most amazing things.
But for the record, Ken, we have to point out you didn't start the book with the phrase, "It was a dark and stormy night." You didn't use that phrase, the infamous phrase.
I did start the book, JD.
Well, I stand corrected.
You're right. I did start the book.
I stand corrected on that because, of course, that's always the great cliche of novels, but sometimes life just exceeds art in this. And I think the point we should stress at the outset, whatever stylistic points you use in the start of the book for satire and to make the point, is that, Ken, you lived this. You were one of the negotiators there, so this is not something that you have to go and research in footnotes other than to jog your memory and perhaps get the perspective of others. Your unique role as being a key participant in this, now you're stepping back into it a quarter century later. So dark and stormy nights and haunted houses notwithstanding, as you look back at this, what is the key thing we need to remember about the leadership of Ronald Reagan and this particular encounter with Gorbachev at Reykjavik?
Well, JD, a reader of this book, Reagan at Reykjavik, can know even more than I knew going into Reykjavik and, as you say, being a participant there. Why is that? Because we now have the American notes and the Russian notes of what Gorbachev and Reagan talked about for 10 and a half hours. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never talked to anybody for 10 and a half hours. And Reagan tells stories during that time. Gorbachev gets mad at him during that time. And it's just an amazing kind of episode. So we can kind of peek through the keyhole of the small conference room at the Hofty House where they met, the haunted house where they met, and we can put our ear to the door and listen in. And what we see is that Ronald Reagan had an overall strategy, which we don't find exactly today, JD, overall strategy that he worked out in the 1970s. And the strategy on the Cold War was basically, in a nutshell, we win, they lose. And how was he going to bring about that strategy? By pursuing the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, by getting deep cuts in nuclear weapons, by getting a overall arms buildup, military buildup by the United States, and by delegitimizing the Soviet Union by calling it an evil empire, the focus of evil in the modern world, on the ash heap of history. That kind of overall strategy and the kind of determination that the president showed at Reykjavik led to the end of the Cold War. And that's why the book is called Reagan at Reykjavik, 48 Hours That Ended the Cold War.
And Ken, refresh my memory on this, but it's something that I've been able to see from two perspectives. On this side of things, as one describing what happens and analyzing, that's unique, but having been in elective office, I think if there's a commonality of a challenge for an elected leader, it is at times that the staff can get ahead of the intentions of the leader, that staffs get enthusiastic about producing results, that negotiators are laboring at the table at the pleasure or the direction of the elected leader, but at times, and since I aspired to the Senate but never went there, when I was in the House dealing with some of the senators, it would seem there was a supremacy of staff, that some senators would let the staff lead and then the senators would step in. in this dynamic with Reagan, I imagine you and your counterparts were very busy. Suddenly it seemed things came together, but then President Reagan says, you know, this just isn't right at this particular moment. Was he one who reined in the staffs?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. JD. It was even more mysterious and ghost-like than you said, because Ronald Reagan was leading the charge. He really didn't ask much staff advice, and that's why Michael Reagan, his son, said that you can gain more insights into Ronald Reagan by reading this book than by any other book he's seen. Why is that? Not because I did such a brilliant job on the book, but because we now have the notes of what they said to each other directly. So you, the reader, JD, when you read this book, you will see Ronald Reagan's mind at work. You will see his character in play. You will see how tough he was and how determined he was. Yes, you're right that the staff participated, but we participated quite apart from what Reagan was doing. We met with the Soviet counterparts from 8 o'clock at night till 6:20 the next morning, and it was a great negotiations, but it wasn't as great in negotiations as Reagan had.
Ken, as we take a look at today, and certainly so many of us who are conservatives, we say, what would Reagan do? So let's ask that question in the here and now, in the context of the Ukraine and overall in national security policy and world affairs. How do you think President Reagan, or what would President Reagan advise our current president to be doing?
Two things, JD. One is landed an overall strategy. You have to know where you're going in order to get there, okay? And the fact is, I don't feel today there's that kind of overall strategy that Reagan had. And we win, they lose, and how to get there. And number two is to be tough. The president, as you said, tried to deal with various Russian leaders. They kept dying on him as he complained about that. But then when he got Mikhail Gorbachev, what he was willing to do is amazing. He was willing to sit down with the Soviets, but he was also willing to stand up to the Soviets. And I'm not sure we see that kind of fortitude right now. When President Reagan said, this is what I want to do, people at first didn't take him seriously, but then they found out, this guy is really for real. And during this time at the Reykjavik summit, Gorbachev says to him, I'll bet you 11, 12 times, according to the record, both the Russian record and the American record, I'm making all the concessions here, you're giving me nothing. Well, Reagan doesn't answer any of those accusations. Why? Because he thinks it's just fine that Gorbachev's making all the concessions and Reagan, is giving up nothing. The fact is that Reagan knew where he wanted to go, and he was tough in getting there.
Ken Adelman, it's obvious that American history continues and we want our country to thrive, but we will not see the likes of Ronald Reagan again. And I do look forward to reading your book. The opening, it was a dark and stormy night notwithstanding. The book, Reagan at Reykjavik. Ken Adelman, you lived it, you've written about it, you've done the scholarship on it, and in these few minutes you have given us insights that only whet our appetite to read about this and to again imagine not only what would Reagan do today, but look back at what Ronald Reagan did for this nation in the 1980s. Ken Adelman, you've performed a great
It's a great
service.
story.
We look forward to reading it. God bless you, Ken. Thanks for your time. Take good care. America's Forum continues. Please stay with us here on Newsmax TV.